If Senzo Tanaka is his Shidoshi, then show us the dim mark.
Very good. But break, not hit back. You are next.
Frank Dux is a highly trained American soldier with one very unusual goal. He wants to enter an illegal martial arts tournament in Hong Kong. Not a friendly tournament, not the kind where everyone gets a participation trophy. This is the Kumite, a secret underground competition where the world's most dangerous fighters gather to beat each other senseless, and Frank wants in. But before he can enter, the movie takes us back to where his obsession began. As a young boy, Frank breaks into the home of a Japanese man named Senzo Tanaka. Frank isn't there to steal anything, he's there to take a sword. Unfortunately for him, Tanaka catches him. And instead of calling the police, Tanaka decides to teach the boy a lesson himself. Frank is completely outmatched, but he refuses to give up. And that determination catches Tanaka's attention. So instead of throwing him out, Tanaka takes Frank under his wing. Frank begins training in martial arts alongside Tanaka's own son, Shingo. At first, Frank is just a kid trying to keep up, but over the years, he becomes stronger, faster, and far more dangerous. Eventually, Frank and Shingo become like brothers. Unfortunately, their happiness doesn't last. One night, while Tanaka is away, a group of criminals breaks into the house. Shingo tries to protect his family, but one of the attackers shoots him, and just like that, Frank loses the person closest to him. Tanaka is devastated, but instead of abandoning Frank, he continues training him. Years later, Frank has become an elite martial artist, and he is determined to honor Shingo's memory. His plan? Enter the Kumite. But the military has other plans. Frank's superiors want him to join them on an important mission. Frank politely says no, because apparently international military duty is less important than entering a secret tournament where people routinely break each other's bones.
I heard you can get killed at that Kumite.
Only if you fuck up.
So Frank leaves, and immediately 2 military agents named Helmer and Rollins are sent to bring him back. Frank doesn't exactly cooperate. The agents eventually track him down, but Frank escapes before they can capture him. And while Frank is trying to reach Hong Kong, we meet the fighter who stands between him and glory, Chong Li, a massive, terrifying champion who has dominated the Kumite for years. Chong Li doesn't just beat his opponents, he destroys them, and he seems to enjoy every second of it. During one match, Chong Li completely overwhelms his opponent. Then, instead of finishing the fight quickly, he continues attacking him. The crowd watches in horror, but Chong Li doesn't care. He wants everyone to understand one simple fact. He is the most dangerous man in the tournament. Meanwhile, Frank finally arrives in Hong Kong, but getting into the Kumite is not as simple as buying a ticket. Frank needs an invitation, and the organizers aren't exactly interested in letting some random American walk into their secret tournament. Fortunately, Frank finds a way.
If Senzo Tanaka is his Shidoshi, then show us the dim mark.
Very good. But break, not hit back.
Along the way, Frank also meets Janice Kent. Janice is a journalist investigating the Kumite, because apparently even an illegal underground martial arts tournament has journalists trying to get exclusive access. Janice wants to expose the competition. Frank wants to win it. So naturally, they begin working together. The tournament finally begins, and immediately the fighters start beating each other like they have personally offended one another. The rules are simple. Fight, win, try not to die. Frank enters his first match, and while his opponent is strong, Frank is faster. Much faster. He uses a combination of kicks, punches, and lightning-fast attacks to overwhelm the fighter. And just like that, Frank wins his first Kumite match. But the competition only gets harder. Another fighter tries to intimidate Frank. Frank responds by kicking him in the face. Apparently, that is his preferred method of communication. As the tournament continues, Frank proves that he is not just another fighter. He is one of the best competitors in the entire competition. Meanwhile, Ray Jackson is also making his way through the tournament, and he is doing it with his usual subtlety, which is to say, absolutely none. Ray fights like a human wrecking ball. He charges forward, throws enormous punches, and somehow survives attacks that should have sent him to the hospital. Eventually, Ray comes face to face with Chong Li, and this is where things go very badly. Ray attacks first, but Chong Li barely seems bothered. He absorbs Ray's punches. then begins beating him down. Ray keeps fighting, but Chong-Li is too strong. He slams Ray into the ground and continues attacking him long after the match should have been over. Frank watches helplessly. He wants to intervene, but the rules prevent him from entering the fight. So Ray is left alone with the most dangerous fighter in the tournament. Chong-Li finally delivers a brutal attack. Ray is seriously injured, and the message is clear.
You are next.
If Frank wants to win the Kumite, he will eventually have to face Chong-Li. After the fight, Frank visits Ray in the hospital. Ray is badly injured, but somehow he is still talking. Because even near death, Ray Jackson apparently refuses to stop being Ray Jackson. Frank promises that he will get revenge. But revenge is not the only thing driving him. Frank is also being hunted. Helmer and Rollins have arrived in Hong Kong, and they are determined to bring him back to the United States. They track Frank to the Kumite. But by now, Frank has become one of the tournament's biggest attractions, and he is not interested in leaving. Frank continues fighting, and his opponents become increasingly dangerous. One fighter tries to use brute strength. Frank uses speed. Another tries to overwhelm him with aggression. Frank uses technique. And then, during one of his fights, Frank finds himself facing a fighter who appears to be completely unpredictable. The man attacks with wild movements and strange techniques. But Frank remains calm. He studies his opponent, then finds the opening and finishes the fight. The tournament continues. But Frank's relationship with Janice becomes more complicated. She begins to realize that Frank isn't just fighting for fame. He is fighting because of a promise he made years ago, to honor the man who trained him and the friend he lost. Meanwhile, Chong-Li continues destroying everyone in his path. He is almost impossible to stop, and he knows it. At one point, Chong-Li even mocks Frank. He tells him that he will never defeat him. Frank simply stares back, because Frank has already learned something important. The biggest mistake you can make in a fight is believing your opponent has nothing left to learn. The tournament enters its final stages, and Frank is winning. One opponent after another falls. The crowd begins to realize something. This American fighter might actually be good enough to challenge Chong-Li. But before Frank can reach the final, he has one more obstacle. The military agents finally catch up with him. Helmer and Rollins confront Frank. They tell him that he must return with them. Frank refuses, and the argument quickly becomes physical. The agents attempt to arrest him. Frank fights back. And once again, everyone learns that trying to arrest a martial arts expert is a terrible idea. Frank escapes. The tournament is weighted, and now he's dangerously close to the final. The next fight begins. Frank's opponent is powerful, he is fast, and he is determined to end Frank's tournament run. Frank has spent years preparing for this moment. He refuses to give up. Even when he is knocked down, he gets back up. Even when he is injured, he keeps fighting. And eventually, Frank wins. Now there is only one fight left. Frank Dux versus Chong-Li.
This is it, Frank. You can make history here today.
The Kumite champion against the man who has come all the way from America to challenge him.
You break my record. Now I break you. Like I break your friend.
The final begins, and immediately Chong-Li dominates. He is bigger, stronger, and far more experienced in this tournament. Frank tries to attack, but Chong-Li counters everything. Then Chong-Li begins playing with him, because apparently being terrifyingly strong is not enough. He also needs to be incredibly annoying. Chong-Li taunts Frank. He tells him that he is going to break him, and for a while, it looks like he might. Frank is thrown across the arena. He is beaten down, and the crowd begins to wonder if the fight is already over. But Frank refuses to stay down. He remembers Tanaka, he remembers Shingo, and he remembers the promise that brought him here. Frank gets back up. Chong-Li attacks again, but this time, Frank is ready. He begins using speed instead of strength. He moves around Chong-Li, he dodges the big attacks, and slowly he begins finding openings. Chong-Li becomes furious. He charges forward, but Frank counters him. The fight becomes faster, more brutal, and more desperate. Both men are exhausted, both are injured, but neither is willing to surrender. Chong-Li lands another devastating attack. Frank collapses. The referee begins counting, but Frank rises again. And now, the final battle reaches its climax. Chong-Li attacks with everything he has. Frank dodges, counters, and strikes back. Then, with one final burst of strength, Frank defeats Chong-Li. The champion is finally beaten. The crowd erupts. Frank has won the Kumite. But Chong Li refuses to accept defeat. Even after the fight is over, he tries to attack Frank again. Frank stops him, and in one final act of mercy, he chooses not to destroy the man who tried to destroy him. The tournament is over. Frank has achieved his goal. Before he can celebrate, Helmer and Rollins return. They've finally caught up with him, and now Frank is forced to face the consequences of leaving the military. But after everything he's survived, a couple of angry agents are hardly the biggest problem of his day. Frank returns to the United States, and the story ends with him having achieved what he came for. He entered the most dangerous martial arts tournament in the world. He faced the most terrifying fighter in the competition. He won, not through brute strength, not through luck. Years of training, determination, and refusing to stay down. Because in Bloodsport, the lesson is simple. If you want to become the best fighter in the world, first you need a legendary training montage. Then you need to travel to Hong Kong. Then you need to enter an illegal tournament. Then you need to survive Chong Li. Finally, you need to prove that the greatest weapon in any fight isn't always the biggest punch. Sometimes it's the fighter who refuses to quit. And that fighter is Frank Dux. If you enjoyed this movie recap, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more action-packed movie breakdowns, thrilling recaps, legendary fight scenes, and unforgettable movie moments. Thanks for watching.